How can Jesus return when he never left us to begin with? Matthew 28:20, I am with you always, even until the end of the world. Christians are commanded to be wiser than scribes and religious leaders. All of the scriptures fall into place like pieces of a puzzle when you realize that the great atonement and the covenant was never intended for the current age and in fact happens at the end of the world. We begin with Hebrews 9:26. For then must he often have suffered since the foundation of the world, but now once in the end of the world hath he appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. This verse is telling us that Christ can only die once at the end of the world. The problem here is that the world did not end 2,000 years ago. Let us recall that Apostle Paul claims he told a lie. Romans 3:7, if the truth of God has abounded through my lie, why am I yet judged a sinner? We read in Hebrews 11, faith is the substance of things hoped for. Might the sacrifice of Christ and the Christian faith be something that is hoped for? If the event has not happened yet, spreading the Christian faith based on belief that it has happened has a subconscious psychological function of creating faith, in which case, if it is yet to happen, people throughout the world will already know about it and have built the foundation of their faith upon it. Now, I know what you're thinking, but please bear with me for a few more scriptures. Colossians 1:15, Christ is the image of the invisible God. 1 John 3:8, for this purpose the Son of God was manifested to destroy the works of the devil. This is an odd saying. Christ was manifested. By the way, are the works of the devil still around? Did anything really change after Christ supposedly died 2,000 years ago? If anything, the world became worse. We suffered through the Dark Ages, the Crusades, the Inquisition, the bubonic plague, etc. Now let us refer to Zechariah 12. This chapter is clearly intended for our current time. 12:3, in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. This is the situation we are seeing now with Israel and her war crimes in the Middle East. If all the earth shall be gathered together against Israel, you can bet that the situation in Israel is only going to get worse. Zechariah 12:7, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourns for his only son, and they shall be in bitterness for him as one is in bitterness for his firstborn. They shall look upon me whom they have pierced. This verse seems to refer to Jesus. This scenario where all nations are going to war against Israel continues into Zechariah 14. Verse 4, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. This one has definitely been linked to the so-called return or second coming of Jesus. Then in verses 6 and 7, it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. Compare this to Revelation 21, where the New Jerusalem has no need of the sun or the moon. There are also fundamental contradictions between what is taught by Jesus and Apostle Paul, which cannot be reconciled unless the real death of Christ happens at the end of the world. For there is no New Testament without the death of the testator. In Pauline theology, Christ has become the curse, and the law has been done away with. But Christ said, think not I come to change the laws, for until heaven and earth pass away, not one tidbit can be changed. Again, Christ said he is with us always until the end of the world. Until the end of the world. He's not with us after the end of the world. The more I analyze the scriptures, the more reasonable it seems to me that the New Testament, the New Covenant, is actually intended for the new heavens and the new earth, not the current age. This might be very important because Christ said, I will reject many for lawlessness. But don't be too worried about this. There is not one single nation, not even Israel, that keeps the Torah laws. These laws must either be broken or maintained at a national level, because they include laws such as killing the adulterers, homosexuals, or Sabbath breakers. Most of these laws simply can't be followed today, unless the nations were to implement them. So it's the fault of the nations if there is to be blamed for it. In Islam, the second coming of Jesus is called the hour. He, Jesus, is a sign of the hour. Surat 43:61. The Dajjal comes at the last hour. Let us connect all the biblical verses about this hour. Revelation 18, for in 1 hour such great wealth has come to ruin. Babylon falls in 1 hour. Luke 12:40, the Son of Man comes in an hour you do not expect. No one knows the day or the hour. Father, save me from this hour. No, it was for this reason I came. 1 John 2:18, dear children, this is the last hour, and as you have heard, the Antichrist is coming. Even now many Antichrists are among us. Revelation 3:10, since you have kept my command to endure patiently, I will keep you from the hour of trial that will come upon the world. Matthew 20:12, these men who were hired last worked only 1 hour, yet they were given the same pay as those who worked for the full day in this parable. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. The day is the day of the Lord, and the hour is the last hour. And indeed, it assumes that no one will understand this, though it is not impossible. Matthew 24:50, the master of that servant will come in an hour he did not expect. Do not persecute fellow servants in the word. I may not call myself a Christian or agree with Christians or go to church, but I am one who labors in the word and am trying to honestly figure things out, and I am set against those who claim to be of the faith but do not endeavor to learn and understand, but simply regurgitate the popular theology they have been taught. The 100th monkey is at odds with the other 99. And he said the third time, are you still sleeping? It is enough. The hour is come. Woe unto you, great city Babylon, in 1 hour your doom is come. Prior to these end-time events in Zechariah 12, 13, and 14, we find Zechariah 11, which when you really stop and take a close examination of this chapter, ask yourself, who is talking to who? The narrator is Judas, because he gets the 30 silver. 11:10, and I took my staff, even beauty, and cut it asunder, that I might break my covenant which I had made with all the people. Notice it is Judas talking. It is Judas who owns the 2 staffs, beauty and bands, and who made the covenant with all the people. 11, and it was broken in that day, and so the poor of the flock that waited upon me knew that it was the word of the Lord. And I said unto them, if you think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they waited for my price, 30 pieces of silver. Give to me my price. This implies a scene where Judas is going to the Pharisees and telling them that he is the Christ and turning himself in for 30 silver. Because he's asking them to hand over to him the price that he himself is worth. And you just can't interpret this any other way. Maybe he's taking the place of Jesus so that Jesus could escape. And the Lord said unto me, cast it unto the potter, a goodly price that I was prized out of them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Now in this verse, it isn't clear who is implied for the goodly price that I was prized of them part, but Judas is told to cast the 30 pieces of silver to the potter in the house of the Lord. By the way, who is the potter? The potter refers to the real God in a number of scriptures. Romans 9:21, hath not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? The potter is God, and the Lord is referring to Christ, or Saturn/Satan, who is said to be within the flesh of Judas. The Lord of the Old Testament is called El, who is also called Saturn. Then I cut asunder mine other staff bands, that I might break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. Again, the narrator is Judas, and implying it is his staff and his covenant to break. And in the video, Yahweh the Draco Overlord, Yahweh himself has been linked with Judas and Jude. There are many aspects of Christianity that are direct parallels to the events of the transgression in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve eat the forbidden fruit and became gods. Christians eat the symbolic flesh and blood of Christ and become sons of God. Even if my theory is correct, it doesn't really change anything for you. This gospel will be spread to all nations, and then the end will come. It just means that the faith had to be spread in a preemptive manner so that the faithful would be ready at the actual time when Christ dies, once at the end of the world. In Hebrews 9:26, Christ has often been linked with the Son and the 12 apostles as the 12 houses of the zodiac. Whether this means anything significant, if the Son goes out, would that not cause the end of the world? Would the world mourn over Jesus as the sun if it went out? The Bible predicts that it will go out. Matthew 24:29, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not shine. And there are many other verses to this extent, including the New Jerusalem, which has no need of the sun. This happens immediately after the tribulation of these current days. We are seeing it now. In fact, the sun has been getting weaker and weaker. Huge areas of the sun have already gone dark from time to time. Sunspot activity is at an all-time low, if not dead altogether. Some scientists are expecting an ice age as we enter what they are calling a solar minimum. But could it actually go out completely? Look for YouTube videos about the NASA ISS sun simulator and the dying sun and ice age and solar minimum, and you'll find quite a lot of stuff. Remember, it is written, the day of the Lord is darkness, not light. It is thick darkness. When the man of sin is revealed, the day of the Lord will follow. This is all due to happen in our time. If Christ has already come and died for the sins of the world, it hasn't changed a darn thing. Things have only gotten worse. The works of the devil most certainly have not been destroyed. I don't see this as having been fulfilled at all. Christianity was spread as a lie, implied in Romans 3:7, because faith is the substance of things hoped for. Christ is called the image of the invisible God. Think about this. Think about how this could be a trap for the so-called Antichrist, who presumably comes along and claims to be Christ, because the real objective is to make Satan pay for the sins of the world, not an innocent person. Paul said that Christ became the curse. You don't get to remain holy after becoming the curse and taking the blame for every sin in the world. The serpent in Eden was cursed, and Eden was cursed above all. Paul said of Jesus, cursed is he who hangs on a tree, and Judas hung himself on a tree. Judas and Christ in both cases amount to suicide. Peter tried to stop Christ from his mission of dying on the cross and was rebuked as Satan for doing so. Ultimately, it is a story of suicide no matter how you look at it. I'll leave you with a final thought. Did Jesus, or one of the persons Jesus was based upon, actually survive the cross the first time around? There is some good research to this effect. The following